It begins softly, a glance, a message, a warmth that feels like safety. He says all the right things. He listens, remembers, admires you. You tell yourself, finally, someone who sees me. But before long, something shifts. You start to feel tired, uncertain, smaller. His love no longer nourishes you, it consumes you. There are men who do not love to connect, they love to possess. Their attention feels intoxicating at first, like light after long darkness. But beneath it hides a hunger that does not feed on love, only on energy. They do not take your body, they take your peace. And by the time you notice, you are already woven into their web of need, guilt, and confusion. Such men are not villains, they are unconscious. They draw power from others because they have not yet faced the emptiness within themselves. They speak of love, but their love is a trap, a pattern meant to pull life from the woman who gives too much. And until you awaken to this pattern, you will keep mistaking intensity for intimacy and obsession for devotion. You will call it fate, you will call it chemistry. You will call it love until you can barely recognize yourself in the mirror. Your laughter will sound quieter, your intuition will second-guess itself. You will wonder when your radiance became dim. But there are signs, subtle, precise, ancient, as the instincts that once kept women safe before they learned to doubt themselves. 7 signs that whisper the truth before your mind dares to hear it. If you learn to see them, you will never again fall for a man who drains your life force under the name of love. Listen carefully, because his words may be sweet, his touch may be tender, and his eyes may promise forever. But if you miss these 7 signs, you will give your light to someone who only knows how to live in shadow. His love will not free you, it will feed on you. Part I, he mirrors you too perfectly. There is a peculiar danger in the kind of man who seems to know you instantly. He looks at you, and it feels as if he has seen the places in your soul that others have overlooked. His words echo your thoughts. His admiration feels like recognition, not flattery. You think, finally, someone who understands me without effort. But what you are meeting in him is not understanding, it is reflection. He does not see you, he mirrors you. This is how such men draw you in, not by offering truth, but by imitating it. They listen carefully, not to comprehend, but to collect. Every dream you share becomes a part of his costume. Every wound becomes an opening through which he learns how to appear safe. He does not yet know who he is, and so he borrows identity through imitation. He becomes the shape of your longing. He mirrors your light to make you believe he possesses it. In the beginning, this reflection feels intoxicating. It awakens something ancient in the psyche, the archetypal memory of reunion, the soul's desire to return to what it has lost. But in truth, you are not meeting another person. You are meeting your own projection, the image of what you wish to find. What feels like recognition is repetition, the repetition of your own unfulfilled pattern. This is the seduction of projection. It hides within what appears to be fate. The more deeply you long to be seen, the more susceptible you become to those who only mirror that desire. Such mirroring feels like intimacy, but it is only reflection. The right man expands your soul. The draining man merely copies it. His warmth depends on your radiance. Without your attention, his glow fades. Without your belief, his identity unravels. Soon you will notice that you are doing the emotional labor of keeping the connection alive. You must smile so that he can feel loved, forgive so that he can feel good, affirm so that he can feel whole. You become the fire that keeps his illusion alight. Yet while he seems to love you, what he truly loves is the reflection of himself he sees in your eyes. The moment you stop mirroring admiration, the warmth between you begins to cool. You may begin to feel inexplicably tired, not because he has taken anything visible, but because he has begun to live on your psychic energy. Every moment of your attention feeds his unformed sense of self. He does not mean to do this. He is unconscious of it. But to remain in his light, you must dim your own. You start to sense that you are shrinking not from rejection, but from overexposure. This dynamic is ancient. It is the myth of Narcissus and Echo. Narcissus, seeing his own reflection, falls in love with it, unable to distinguish the image from the living being. Echo, whose voice repeats what she hears, loses her form until only her sound remains. The draining man is Narcissus reborn, enamored not with life, but with his reflection in the feminine soul. And the woman who loves him becomes Echo, repeating his needs until she vanishes into the echo of his self-absorption. At first, she believes the connection is profound, because it is seamless, every thought echoed, every feeling returned. But the soul does not grow in seamlessness, it grows in contrast. True love introduces difference, friction, mystery. False love feels like fusion, but fusion is not union, it is erasure. A man who truly sees you will also disagree with you. He will bring the gift of his difference, the gentle friction that allows both souls to refine each other. But the man who mirrors you too perfectly is not meeting you, he is reflecting you. He repeats what you say, so you never realize that he has no voice of his own. As time passes, you will feel the subtle exhaustion of maintaining this illusion. You will sense that the connection depends on your constant affirmation. The moment you withdraw your attention, his affection falters. He cannot sustain intimacy without performance, and so he needs your emotion to substitute for his inner life. In loving him, you begin to perform yourself. You start curating your being to preserve his admiration. Your spontaneity fades into vigilance. Your laughter becomes effort. What once felt like recognition now feels like rehearsal. And yet, you cannot easily leave, because his absence feels like self-abandonment. He has woven himself into the image of what you believe love should look like. But love, in its true form, is not found in reflection. It is found in revelation. It requires two souls who dare to remain distinct, who meet each other not as copies, but as mirrors that reveal truth, not illusion. To love consciously is to allow difference, to let the other be other, without needing to control or be controlled. The draining man cannot do this. His inner world is still ruled by shadow, by the unconscious belief that intimacy equals identity, that to be loved he must become whatever you need. But this is not love, it is survival. It is the false alchemy of imitation in place of individuation. When you begin to awaken to this pattern, it will not be anger that sets you free, but clarity. You will start to see the emptiness behind his mimicry, the hollowness behind the reflection. You will realize that what he called love was need, and what you called recognition was projection. And so you step back quietly at first to test the distance. The moment you do, his illusion begins to falter. The mirror cracks, the image collapses. You see him as he is not evil, not monstrous, but undeveloped. He has not yet met his own soul, and so he feeds on yours. True connection does not drain, it restores. It does not depend on reflection, but thrives on reality. The right man will not imitate your light, he will protect it. He will not merge with your image, he will meet your depth. He will not mirror you perfectly, because he has a face of his own. And in that difference, in that living tension between two souls, real love is born. Part 2. His warmth turns into guilt. At first, his warmth feels like safety. It wraps around you like sunlight after a long winter. He listens with an attentiveness that feels holy. His eyes soften when you speak of pain. He tells you he will never let you feel alone again. You believe him. And for a time, you feel restored, seen, cherished, protected. But slowly, the same warmth that comforted you begins to constrict. What once felt like care now feels like weight. What once nourished you now drains you. The change is not sudden. It arrives in whispers, in small emotional exchanges that leave you slightly off balance. You sense it when he sighs after you say you need space, when he withdraws subtly after you assert a boundary, when his silence begins to punish instead of soothe. It is not cruelty that drives him, but dependence. His love is not free. It demands payment in constant reassurance. The draining man's warmth is not rooted in generosity, but in hunger. He loves the feeling of being needed because it distracts him from his own emptiness. He mistakes your affection for oxygen and your attention for purpose. His vulnerability, at first disarming, soon becomes his weapon. It is not that he intends to manipulate, it is that his survival depends on being the center of your compassion. And because you are kind, you give again and again until kindness becomes exhaustion. In the beginning, his pain made you love him more. You felt honored to be the one who could heal what others had ignored. But soon, you find that his suffering never lessens. It shifts shape, but it never ends. There is always something to soothe, some misunderstanding to repair, some reassurance to give. You begin to feel that if you rest, he will break. And so, you stop resting. This is how energy is drained, not through drama, but through devotion turned inward against the self. You give from a place that is no longer abundant. You give because you fear that withdrawing would be cruel. You confuse self-sacrifice with love, caretaking with commitment. And he, though grateful, never truly receives. He does not grow stronger through your giving, he grows dependent. What began as tenderness becomes obligation. You start to feel responsible for his moods. When he is sad, you wonder if you caused it. When he withdraws, you search your memory for what you said wrong. When he smiles again, you feel relief instead of joy. His love begins to govern your nervous system. You measure your worth by his comfort. This dynamic is not love, it is the old archetype of the devouring child reborn in the guise of romance. The man who has not yet faced his inner wounds clings to the feminine as mother. He does not seek partnership, he seeks reparenting. And the woman, unconsciously drawn to the chance to heal what was broken in her own story, accepts the role. She becomes his emotional home, but in doing so, she loses hers. At first, she tells herself this is what love requires: patience, empathy, care. But slowly, she notices the imbalance. She gives and gives, yet the well never fills. His gratitude turns to expectation. Her compassion becomes duty. The warmth that once sustained their bond now becomes the very thing that drains it. He says, "You're the only one who understands me." It sounds romantic, but it is a cage disguised as praise, because if she is the only one who understands him, she can never rest. She must always remain available, always attuned, and if she ever steps back, he interprets it as rejection. He does not realize that love without space suffocates both. His unconscious fear of abandonment makes him pull tighter whenever she tries to breathe. The more she gives, the more he needs. The more he needs, the more she disappears. What she calls devotion is really depletion, and yet she blames herself. She believes that if she could just love him better, listen more, soothe faster, give deeper, he would finally feel whole. But the truth is this: no amount of love can fill the emptiness a person refuses to face. You cannot breathe for someone who has forgotten how to inhale. His guilt becomes her burden. He apologizes often, and yet the apology always circles back to her reassurance. "I'm sorry I'm too much for you," he says, and she rushes to deny it. No, you're not too much," she insists. But with every reassurance, she reinforces his dependence. She becomes responsible for regulating his worth. It is here that the sacred feminine, the part of her that gives life, becomes the sacrificial feminine, the one who bleeds herself dry to sustain another. Her love turns maternal. She becomes his healer, his confessor, his comforter. But a man who turns his partner into his mother loses the ability to desire her, to meet her as equal. The relationship becomes an unconscious reenactment of childhood dependency, a regression, not a union. You will know this pattern by the fatigue that lives in your bones. You will sense it in the sigh that escapes you when you see his name light up your phone. You will hear it in the way you say, "It's okay," when it isn't. This is not love growing deeper. It is love dissolving into obligation. And yet, it is not evil. It is simply unconscious. He does not intend to drain you. He drains because he cannot yet generate his own warmth. His emotional body remains frozen in boyhood, and he feeds on the energy of the woman who still believes love means saving. But no man can be saved by what he refuses to feel within himself, and no woman can remain alive while serving as the vessel for another's unhealed soul. Love built on guilt is not love, it is bondage, sanctified by empathy. When you awaken to this truth, you may feel both sorrow and liberation. You will see how your compassion has been misused, not maliciously, but blindly. You will realize that every moment of care that cost you your peace was not love, but self-betrayal, disguised as virtue. And slowly, you will begin to withdraw your energy, not as punishment, but as prayer. For the first time, you will see that guilt has no place in love. Love does not demand exhaustion. Love does not punish boundaries. Love does not make you smaller to make another feel safe. Love is not sacrifice. It is mutual nourishment. The man who drains you will call your detachment cruelty. He will say you have changed, and in a way, you have remembered yourself. You have chosen truth over obligation, peace over performance. When you stop carrying him, he will stumble. He may blame you. But do not mistake his discomfort for your wrongdoing. You were never meant to be the source of another's emotional survival. You were meant to be a mirror, not a mother, a partner, not a parent. True love is not built on guilt, but on freedom. The right man will not fear your independence. He will rest in it. He will not need you to carry his wounds. He will carry them beside you. He will not make you smaller to feel strong. He will grow stronger through your wholeness. The draining man will teach you this through pain. His hunger will expose where your compassion becomes captivity. And once you see it, you will never again mistake need for love. For love, in its purest form, is not a chain of guilt. It is the sacred space in which two souls stand free, each responsible for their own light, yet choosing to share it. Part 3. He thrives on your confusion. There is a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when the warmth between you begins to blur. He still says the right things, still reaches for your hand, still smiles with that practiced gentleness, but something no longer aligns. His affection feels unpredictable. You begin to second-guess yourself, reading and rereading his words, replaying conversations for clues. You sense the balance shifting, though you cannot yet name how. It begins as unease, and soon becomes fog. This fog is not accidental. It is the atmosphere of the unconscious. The draining man lives within it and draws his security from it. He may not know what he is doing, but some part of him thrives when you are uncertain. Clarity threatens his control. Confusion sustains it. When you doubt yourself, you seek his reassurance. When you seek his reassurance, he feels powerful again. The truth is that such a man does not plan to manipulate his psyche, simply knows no other way to maintain connection. His inner world is fractured, and he unconsciously projects that fragmentation onto the space between you. The more you love him, the more you feel compelled to decode him. But this is how he keeps you near, by becoming a riddle you cannot solve. At first, you call it mystery. You tell yourself he is deep, complex, thoughtful. But depth without honesty is only opacity. The mystery that once drew you now disorients you. His words and actions no longer match. His affection arrives in bursts and then vanishes, without warning. When you ask for truth, he sighs and tells you not to worry. When you press further, he turns the question back to you. Why are you so sensitive? Why can't you just trust me? And so, confusion becomes your new reality. It is a slow hypnosis, one that separates you from your intuition. You begin to doubt what you feel. The sharpness of your inner knowing dulls beneath his contradictions. Your psyche, which once moved freely between reason and instinct, now orbits around his inconsistency. He says he loves you, but the love feels conditional on your silence. He says he admires your strength, but his energy shrinks whenever you assert it. He says he wants honesty, but grows distant when you give it. Each contradiction fractures a piece of your trust, not only in him, but in yourself. The confusion is not a flaw in you. It is the natural result of psychic manipulation, even when it is unconscious. His contradictions create a double bind. Whatever you do, you feel wrong. If you withdraw, he accuses you of indifference. If you reach out, he calls you needy. If you speak, you are dramatic. If you stay silent, you are cold. And so, you live suspended between guilt and anxiety, chasing approval that never stabilizes. This is how energy is drained, through the endless effort to bring coherence to what is inherently incoherent. You become like a woman trying to build a house on quicksand. Every foundation you lay disappears overnight. He thrives in this shifting terrain, for as long as you are occupied by confusion, you will not notice the emptiness at his core. You begin to see patterns: affection followed by withdrawal, reassurance followed by doubt, apology followed by repetition. His contrition is never real. Resolution, it is a reset, a way to keep you invested. And because you long for the man he was in the beginning, you accept it. You wait for him to return to that version of himself, not realizing that the beginning was never truth, it was performance. Psychologically, this dynamic belongs to the trickster archetype, the shadow aspect of the magician. The trickster thrives on instability, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he fears exposure. If the illusion breaks, he must face the void within himself. So he keeps the woman dancing in circles, chasing clarity that will never arrive. This confusion is spiritual theft. Each time you question yourself instead of him, you surrender a fragment of your psychic power. You redirect your intuition, the inner compass that once guided you into analyzing his chaos. Slowly, your energy becomes organized around his unpredictability. This is how dependency is born. You may notice that you begin to apologize more. You apologize for your tone, for your timing, for needing reassurance, for feeling hurt. Each apology lowers your vibration further into confusion until you no longer remember what you were defending. He accepts your remorse, graciously, even comfortingly, and in that moment, balance returns, but only for a while. The cycle repeats. The unconscious truth is that such men are terrified of intimacy. They crave connection, but fear what it will expose in them. So they create confusion as a buffer. As long as you are disoriented, they can feel close without feeling seen. They can feed on your attention without confronting their own inadequacy. The woman who remains in this fog begins to lose her reflection. Her dreams, once vivid, become vague. Her laughter softens into hesitation. Her intuition whispers, "Something is off," but the voice is faint, as if buried under layers of noise. She feels as though she is losing herself, though she cannot explain why. This is the labyrinth of modern love, built not to protect the treasure, but to trap it. Like Ariadne, she holds the thread of truth in her hand, yet forgets she has the power to walk out. Every act of self-doubt tightens the maze. Every act of self-trust unravels it. The man who thrives on her confusion rarely appears monstrous. He often seems wounded, misunderstood, even spiritual. That is part of the spell. His shadow hides behind sincerity. He believes his own narratives, and so his love feels both real and unreal, a paradox that consumes all clarity. In Jungian terms, her energy has been hijacked by projection. The unconscious part of her, the one that still hopes to save love through understanding, has externalized itself onto him. She is no longer in relationship with a person. She is in relationship with her own longing for meaning. To awaken from this spell is painful, for it means recognizing that confusion was never love's fault. It was love misplaced, love directed toward illusion. The fog does not lift suddenly. It clears as she begins to trust her own perception again. The first step is to believe what she feels, even before she can prove it. You will know you are emerging from the fog when your questions begin to shift. You stop asking, "Why is he doing this?" and begin to ask, "Why do I stay when I feel unseen?" You stop analyzing his inconsistencies and start listening to your body's truth. Exhaustion, anxiety, the dull ache of self-doubt, these are not signs of love failing. They are messages from the self calling you home. When you finally step out of the labyrinth, it will not be with triumph, but with quiet understanding. You will see him not as villain, but as mirror, a reflection of what happens when love forgets itself. He did not steal your intuition. You handed it to him, believing he would guard it. But he could not, because he has not yet found his own. The man who thrives on confusion will fade once you refuse to participate in the fog. When you stop explaining, defending, decoding, when you simply observe, his power dissolves. For he cannot survive in clarity. His spell breaks in the light of your awareness, and in that stillness, your mind clears. You feel your energy returning, your intuition rising again from the depths. You remember how it feels to trust your perception, to know without proof, to stand in truth without needing permission. Love, in its essence, is not confusion, it is clarity. It may challenge, it may humble, but it never clouds the soul. It does not drain, it restores. The right man will not leave you guessing, he will leave you grounded. He will not thrive in your confusion, because he has learned to live in his own truth, and in that truth, your heart will finally rest. Part 4. He fears your independence. In the beginning, he will tell you that he admires your strength. He will praise your independence, your vision, your fire. He will say it makes you different from the others, that your courage draws him closer. And yet, as the weeks pass, the tone shifts. His praise grows quieter. His eyes follow you more cautiously. The same qualities that once magnetized him begin to threaten him. What he first adored in you now unsettles him, because your independence reminds him of his own incompleteness. Such a man does not consciously wish to dim your light. Rather, he cannot bear what your freedom reflects in him, the part of himself still chained to fear. Your autonomy reminds him of his dependence, your clarity of his confusion, your wholeness of his fragmentation. The unconscious man falls in love with light until he realizes it reveals his shadow. He begins to misinterpret your strength as distance. When you make a decision without consulting him, he feels excluded. When you take time for solitude, he reads abandonment. When you speak confidently, he feels challenged. Slowly, he begins to respond not to who you are, but to what your strength awakens in him: shame, inadequacy, fear of loss. He will not say, "I am frightened by how much you don't need me." Instead, he will ask softly, "Do you even want me anymore?" He will frame control as care. "I just worry about you." He will disguise criticism as concern. "You're so busy these days, I miss how close we used to be." These are not always lies, they are fragments of truth, twisted by fear. He does not yet know that love cannot thrive where the feminine is asked to shrink. Psychologically, this fear reveals a man ruled by an unintegrated anima, the feminine aspect of his psyche that he has not yet made conscious. He has not learned to nurture, to trust, to receive. Instead, he projects these qualities onto the women he loves, asking them to carry what he cannot hold within himself. Your independence confronts this imbalance. To love you as you are, he would have to meet his own feminine, to embrace receptivity, to feel deeply, to surrender control, but that journey frightens him. And so, he does what frightened men have done for centuries. He confuses intimacy with ownership. He tries to bind what he cannot contain. At first, his efforts appear tender, checking in, offering advice, expressing concern. But soon, the sweetness curdles. His questions become monitoring. His affection becomes expectation. His love becomes surveillance wrapped in poetry. He will say, "I just want to know where you are." What he means is, "I am afraid you exist without me." He will say, "You're growing so fast I can't keep up." What he means is, "Slow down so I can still feel superior." He will say, "I miss the old you," forgetting that he fell in love precisely because you were becoming new. At first, you reassure him. You share more, update him often, reassure him that he still matters, but reassurance never fills the emptiness it's meant to soothe. The more you give, the more he needs. You begin to feel as though you must choose between peace and partnership, between freedom and affection. You tell yourself compromise is love, but what you are really doing is shrinking to fit his fear. Soon, you start editing yourself. You withhold your enthusiasm when you speak of your dreams. You delay joy to make him feel included. You temper your laughter when he is quiet. This is how vitality dies, not through rejection, but through gradual accommodation. You abandon your wholeness piece by piece until you wake one morning and find that you have become smaller in the mirror of his insecurity. You may begin to sense his subtle resentment when you succeed. He will not always express it directly. Instead, it will appear as detachment, sarcasm, or quiet withdrawal. If you confront him, he will insist that he is proud of you, and he believes it, at least in part. But the truth lies beneath. Your independence exposes his passivity. Your growth exposes his stagnation. There is an image that belongs to this dynamic, a vine wrapping around a tree. The vine needs the tree's strength to climb, but it also restricts the tree's growth if left untended. So too does this man cling to your strength to feel upright, yet suffocates it to avoid feeling small. He does not mean to strangle. He simply has not learned how to stand on his own roots. In time, you will notice that your dreams feel heavier to carry. Each time you share one, you must explain, justify, comfort. The joy that once accompanied your ambitions now comes with guilt. You tell yourself you are being considerate, but really, you are being diminished. His fear becomes the invisible boundary of your world. Such relationships are not born from evil, but from imbalance. The masculine that has not matured seeks security, not connection. It wants possession, not partnership. It fears the feminine's independence because it has not yet realized that the true masculine draws its purpose from freedom, not control. You may try to heal him. You will show him that your love is not a threat to his strength, that your success does not diminish his worth. But until he meets his own shadow, until he faces the emptiness he has projected onto you, your compassion will become his crutch. The draining man needs your energy to stabilize his inner world. He thrives when you orbit him, loses balance when you stand alone. And so, he will unconsciously keep you small, through guilt, through praise, through subtle doubt. He will tell you he loves your light, but his behavior will dim it. To free yourself, you must understand this. Your independence will never destroy true love. It only destroys illusion. The man who fears your autonomy does not love you. He loves what you provide: reflection, reassurance, relevance. The right man will not compete with your wholeness. He will celebrate it. He will not lose himself in your strength. He will rise to meet it. The moment you stop apologizing for your freedom, you will see who truly loves you. The wrong man will retreat, unable to survive without control. The right man will expand, his respect deepening into devotion. For he knows that the feminine is not meant to orbit. She is meant to move, to evolve, to bloom. Do not be afraid to outgrow a man who fears your growth. It is not betrayal to leave what diminishes your soul. The woman who refuses to shrink teaches the world what sacred partnership truly means. Not two halves completing each other, but two wholes standing side by side, each grounded in their own light. The man who drains you will call your independence rebellion. The man who honors you will call it love. The difference is consciousness. The unconscious man fears the woman who walks alone. The conscious man walks beside her. And when you meet that man, the one who does not need to chain what he cherishes, you will understand what it means to be both free and connected, both sovereign and seen. His presence will not tighten the air, it will expand it. His love will not demand your devotion, it will invite it. The man who fears your independence teaches you the sacred difference between being loved and being owned. And once you have learned that difference, you will never again mistake control for care nor mistake fear for love. Part V. He punishes emotion with withdrawal. It begins with something small, a moment of honesty, a tremor of feeling you allow to surface. You tell him you're hurt, uncertain, or confused, hoping he will meet you there. But instead, he goes silent. His eyes harden, his warmth vanishes. You can almost feel the air change, as though your truth has offended some unspoken law. He says nothing cruel, he simply withdraws. And in that withdrawal, the lesson begins. Emotion has a price. At first, you do not notice it as punishment. You tell yourself he needs space, that you were too intense, too sensitive. You wait for him to return, replaying your words to find the moment where you must have said too much. When he finally reappears, he smiles as though nothing happened. You feel relief, and in that relief, the conditioning takes hold. You have learned that silence is the price of honesty, that affection depends on your ability to remain calm, agreeable, contained. This is not love, it is training. And yet, it does not come from cruelty. It comes from immaturity, from a man ruled by shame he has never faced. Emotion, to him, feels like exposure. He cannot stay when vulnerability enters the room, for it mirrors the fragility he has buried within himself. His stillness is not composure, it is avoidance. His retreat is not wisdom, it is fear disguised as control. He may say he dislikes drama, but what he truly fears is depth. To him, emotion feels like chaos, the feminine realm he has never learned to navigate. He cannot stand within another's storm because he has never weathered his own. So, when tears appear, he flees to restore order in himself. His withdrawal, though subtle, teaches you that love must remain shallow to remain safe. You begin to adapt. You edit yourself mid-sentence, swallow words that tremble with feeling. You apologize for crying. You say, "It's fine," even when it isn't, because you know what silence feels like, and you fear it more than pain. You shrink your emotional landscape to fit his comfort. Slowly, your truth becomes smaller than his fear. This is how energy is drained, not through conflict, but through suppression. When the feminine hides her feeling nature to preserve attachment, she sacrifices her life force. The psyche withers when expression is denied. The woman who once felt vividly begins to fade, her laughter thinner, her intuition quieter, her vitality dimmed. She becomes agreeable instead of alive. Psychologically, this dynamic belongs to the poor eternus, the eternal boy. The poor longs for beauty and freedom, but cannot bear the weight of consequence. He wants warmth without fire, love without surrender. When faced with emotion, he regresses to boyhood, retreating into silence, as he once did to escape his mother's disapproval or his father's anger. The adult mask remains, but beneath it, the child still trembles. Such a man does not yet understand that love requires endurance. The heart is not protected through withdrawal, it matures through participation. To remain present when another reveals pain, that is what makes love sacred. But he has not yet learned this. He still believes that to feel is to lose control. And so, he leaves not physically, but emotionally, retreating behind a wall of polite detachment while calling it calm. For the woman, this detachment becomes poison. Each withdrawal plants self-doubt where trust once lived. She wonders if she asked too much, if her sadness was unattractive, if her truth was too heavy to be held. But what she cannot yet see is that her feeling was never the problem. It was his fear of the feminine, his inability to meet emotion as sacred energy rather than threat, that turned her openness into burden. Eventually, she begins to fear her own depths. She becomes self-conscious in her vulnerability, anticipating rejection before it comes. Her inner life, once fluid and expressive, becomes cautious. She no longer confides easily. She measures each emotion by how it will be received, until authenticity itself begins to feel dangerous. The heart learns to hide. It is here that love becomes performance. She learns the right tone, the right smile, the right distance to maintain harmony. But harmony born from suppression is not peace, it is paralysis. The relationship remains intact, but the connection dies. His silence grows into an invisible authority, the unspoken rule that governs how close she may come before being exiled again. Yet even this pattern holds meaning. The man who withdraws at emotion mirrors the woman's own disowned masculine, the inner voice that once taught her to suppress rather than express, to analyze instead of feel. His avoidance is her lesson. Through him, she begins to see how she too has silenced herself in the past, how she has mistaken composure for strength. To break this pattern, she must reclaim her right to feel without apology. She must learn that love which cannot hold emotion is not love, it is dependency disguised as peace. She must allow herself to speak, even when silence threatens. She must choose truth over harmony, reality over illusion. And when she does, something miraculous happens. The draining man loses his hold. His power was never in control. It was in her fear of his absence. When she no longer fears his withdrawal, his silence becomes meaningless. He can leave, but she will not follow. For she has remembered that her emotions are not flaws, they are life itself. In time, she will meet a man who does not retreat when the storm comes, who remains present, not to fix, but to witness. He will not see her emotion as threat, but as beauty. He will know that tears are not weakness, but proof that the heart still beats. In his presence, she will learn again that love can be vast enough for the full truth of feeling. The one who punishes emotion will fade, not because she hates him, but because she no longer needs his silence to define her strength. She will have learned what he could not, that love is not the absence of conflict, but the courage to stay when the heart trembles. And when she speaks again, not softly to please, but clearly to live, her voice will no longer seek permission. It will sound like freedom. Part VI, his attention feeds on your weak moments. You begin to notice a strange pattern. He is most tender when you are in pain. His eyes soften when you doubt yourself. His voice warms when you cry. In moments of strength, he seems distant. In moments of uncertainty, he draws near. His love grows brighter when your light grows dim. You think, he must really care for me. But what you are feeling is not love. It is dependency, wearing the mask of compassion. The unconscious man feeds on imbalance. He may not know it, but your weakness stabilizes him. When you falter, he feels powerful again. When you lean on him, he feels essential. The moment you stand upright, he becomes restless, searching for proof that you still need him. He is not nourished by love freely given. He requires need to feel secure. He thrives when you forget your strength. He may not do this maliciously. It is instinct born from inner emptiness. Somewhere in his soul, a wound whispers that worth is earned only through being indispensable. He confuses nurturing with control, concern with possession. He needs you fragile because your strength reminds him of everything he has not yet faced in himself. He calls it devotion, but it is dependency seeking its mirror. At first, his care feels genuine. When you are sad, he listens. When you struggle, he rushes to help. You mistake this for empathy. But slowly, you notice that his warmth appears only when you suffer. When you are peaceful, his interest fades. When you are joyful, his energy dims. He becomes distant when you shine and affectionate when you stumble. You begin to feel guilty for being well. He may create small crises to restore the balance, miscommunications, emotional distance, sudden confessions of insecurity. You find yourself constantly reassuring him, calming him, rebuilding what was never truly broken. He may apologize afterward, insist he didn't mean to worry you. But deep down, you sense a quiet truth. Peace makes him uncomfortable. He needs turbulence to feel connected. This is the energy of the psychic vampire, not of evil, but of emptiness. Such men have not yet learned to draw from their own source. They depend on the emotional currents of those around them to feel alive. When you are grounded, they float away. When you are unsteady, they cling. It is not your light they love, it is your leaking. You begin to notice that your calmness seems to unsettle him. When you stop explaining yourself, he grows anxious. When you set boundaries, he feels unloved. When you take space, he interprets it as rejection. He may even provoke conflict just to restore the familiar rhythm of chaos. He does not realize that he is addicted to emotional intensity. It gives him the illusion of intimacy. For the woman who loves him, this becomes a draining spiral. She mistakes his devotion for depth, his worry for care. She believes that his constant concern is proof of passion. But true love does not need pain as proof. When love only blooms in your weakness, it is not love, it is need disguised as closeness. Psychologically, this dynamic reflects a man possessed by his own unhealed shadow mother, the internalized image of the feminine as provider of comfort and meaning. He has not yet grown beyond the boy who seeks nourishment from the woman's emotional world. When he feels her peace, he panics because it means she no longer functions as his psychic sustenance. So he pulls her back into struggle, where he can feel important again. She, in turn, often plays the role unconsciously. Her empathy, her instinct to care, her desire to heal, these become the very forces that trap her. Each time she comforts him, she feeds the cycle. She begins to believe that her value lies in her ability to restore him. She loses the distinction between compassion and self-erasure, and yet, love was never meant to require depletion. Love that drains cannot elevate. The sacred feminine does not exist to be consumed. She exists to illuminate. When her light begins to flicker, it is not because she is weak, but because she has been turned into fuel. He may say he adores your strength, but his actions betray the truth. Each time you reclaim your energy, he feels invisible. Each time you detach from the cycle, he accuses you of coldness. But what he calls distance is actually balance, the return of your soul to itself. To awaken from this pattern is to see the exchange clearly. Notice when your body feels tight after his kindness, when your heart feels heavy after. Ask yourself, does his presence bring peace, or does it only quiet me enough to feed again? The draining man does not intend harm, but harm comes nonetheless. The psyche, when denied its own center, slowly collapses. The way out is not confrontation, but reclamation. You stop feeding the pattern when you stop seeking his validation in your weakness. You stop apologizing for your strength. You stop performing smallness for the sake of harmony. You remember that love does not thrive in dependency, it blossoms in mutual vitality. There is an ancient law of energy in relationships. What you give unconsciously becomes food for someone's shadow. Awareness is the cure. When you see clearly, the feeding stops. The moment you stand fully in your own power, he can no longer draw from you. His attachment fades because its source, your unconscious giving, has ended. At first, he may protest. He will sense the withdrawal of energy and confuse it with rejection. He may become distant, dramatic, or suddenly affectionate. But this is not your concern. You are not his source. He must learn to find his own, and you will begin to feel your strength return like sunlight after a long night. The exhaustion will lift, the confusion will clear. You will remember that love does not need to feed, it needs to flow. The right man will not come alive when you are weak, he will come alive when you are radiant. He will not calm you just to restore his power. He will stand beside you so that both your fires burn brighter. A love that only thrives on your fragility is not love at all. It is the unconscious dance of two incomplete souls, each seeking energy where they have not yet found spirit. But once you awaken, once you draw back your light and stand in it, you will never again be devoured. You will attract a man who does not feed on your weakness. He will mirror your strength, honor your fullness, and walk beside you in peace. Part 7, he leaves. You disconnected from yourself. By the end, you will barely recognize the woman you have become. You will speak in softer tones, measure your words, think twice before feeling. You will wake each morning already tired, not from work or worry, but from carrying the weight of being someone you are not. You will look in the mirror and see the faint outline of your old self, a woman who once laughed without seeking permission, who once trusted her instincts, who once glowed from within, now dimmed beneath the quiet ache of confusion. This is what happens when a man drains your energy. He does not steal it all at once. He takes it in fragments, a little from each apology, each concession, each time you silence what you know to keep the peace. At first, you believe it is love that makes you yield. You tell yourself that compromise is maturity, that patience is strength. But slowly, your inner compass begins to falter. You no longer know where you end and he begins. Your intuition, once your truest ally, now feels like a faint echo drowned by his opinions. You find yourself thinking as he thinks, feeling what he feels, apologizing even when you are right. Your energy, once radiant and self-sustained, becomes entirely reactive to his moods. When he is happy, you feel light. When he withdraws, you collapse. Your soul begins to orbit his unconsciousness, mistaking that orbit for intimacy. But love that demands disconnection from yourself is not love. It is psychic dependency. It is the final stage of the draining pattern, the loss of inner authority. You begin to need his validation to confirm your reality. If he calls you too sensitive, you suppress your intuition. If he says you are distant, you abandon your solitude. If he questions your memory, you doubt what you lived. This is the deepest wound. Such love inflicts not heartbreak, but disorientation. The woman who once trusted her instincts now second-guesses her every truth. He may insist he loves you, and perhaps he believes he does, but his love is not communion, it is consumption. He cannot love what he does not allow to exist separately. His energy depends on keeping you uncertain, for in your uncertainty he finds significance. His identity feeds on being the one you turn to for grounding, grounding you no longer possess because you gave it away to sustain him. You try to fix it through communication, through self-improvement, through spiritual understanding, but you cannot heal a bond that survives only on your forgetting. He cannot meet you in wholeness because his unconscious need is for dominance, not equality. The more conscious you become, the less he can reach you. And so, to stay connected, you must dim your awareness. This is the slowest kind of dying, the gradual silencing of your inner life. Yet, even in this darkness, the psyche begins to whisper. Something deep within you knows that this depletion cannot be your destiny. You begin to sense that the emptiness you feel is not a flaw but a message. The exhaustion becomes unbearable precisely because your soul is calling for return, a return to yourself. You begin to remember who you were before the draining began. The woman who created not to be admired but because she was alive. The woman who trusted silence more than approval. The woman who understood that love should expand, not consume. Slowly, you begin to turn your gaze inward to the places you abandoned while tending to him. You find there not emptiness, but dormant light, waiting to be reclaimed. This is the moment of awakening, when you realize that he never took your energy. You gave it, unconsciously, in the hope that love would justify your sacrifice. But love does not ask for that kind of loss. True love calls you deeper into yourself, not away from it. The draining man only mirrored the parts of you that had forgotten their worth. When you withdraw your energy, he fades because his power was never his own. In alchemy, this stage is called the nigredo, the blackening, the death before rebirth. The illusion dissolves, leaving you raw but real. You see him clearly now, not as the one who betrayed you, but as the teacher who revealed your threshold. He showed you how far you were willing to go to be loved. And now, standing in the ruins of what you thought was devotion, you begin to choose differently. You gather yourself piece by piece, your laughter from the corners of silence, your intuition from the ashes of apology, your sovereignty from the ruins of guilt. The energy you once poured into him begins to circulate again within you. You feel it in your breath, your spine, your eyes. The fatigue starts to lift. You realize that you do not need to earn peace. You only need to stop giving it away. When you finally walk away, it will not be dramatic. There will be no anger, no accusation, only clarity. You will leave quietly because you no longer need to prove anything. You have remembered what he helped you forget, that love is not supposed to make you smaller, it is meant to make you more fully alive. And one day, when you meet a man who loves from presence instead of need, you will recognize the difference immediately. His love will not drain you. It will not feel like obligation or confusion. It will feel like breath returning to the body, steady, sacred, familiar. You will feel yourself expand rather than contract, rise rather than recede. That is how you will know you are home again within yourself. The man who drained you was not your downfall. He was your mirror. Through him, you learned the sacred boundary between compassion and self-betrayal. You learned that love cannot save what refuses to awaken. And most of all, you learned that your energy is holy, meant not to be given blindly, but shared consciously. The moment you honor that truth, you no longer attract men who feed on your light. You attract only those who can stand in its presence, not to take it, but to reflect it back.